Hey, so at our house, it is the third annual summer boot camp happening right now. Now, some of you know what that means, but some of you don't. So let me tell you what that means. 2 years ago, I said to my wife, listen, I want our kids to grow when it comes to their physical life and also their mental life, if you will, and also spiritually. And I wanted to create these habits in their lives. So I decided we were going to do summer boot camp every summer. Actually, I call it Poppy's Boot Camp because I kind of want to be called Poppy. So if you hear that, that's what it means too. And so what I do is I get them up at 7:30 in the morning, pretty much 4 days out of the week, right? I get them up and then we go for a run around the block, which is a half a mile. We come back to the house and we do one set of push-ups, one set of sit-ups, as much as you can do for a whole minute. Then after that, I show an inspirational video just to kind of, get them in the mood, right? I show what it means because I'm teaching them, even though it's difficult, let's keep doing it. Anyone hear the Rocky movie? He says, life, let me tell you something you already know. Life ain't all sunshine and rainbows. Anyone know that one? That's when I do one of those. I'll play a movie clip. I'll play a commencement speech, You'll see Arnold Schwarzenegger from time to time. And I'm trying to teach them to do the hard things in life. And when you don't, to do those things and continue to do them even when no one's watching, right? And so part of the reason, too, is I don't want them to sleep until 10, so I get them up at 7:30. I know. Don't report me to, DCF or whatever it is. But here's a couple pictures of us doing it. There they are working out right now. Two neighbors were with us. So there's 5 of us. This was just Friday. By the way, go to the next picture. There we are, kind of celebrating right there. In fact, last year, we had up to 8 kids doing it with us one morning and a dad. So it kind of spreads around the neighborhood because they see all these people running, and they're like, oh, okay. But you know what? When we first started doing it, they complained. They cried. They groaned. They're like, Daddy, we don't want to do this anymore, And I'm trying to teach them, though, that discipline pays off. Consistency in your life is eventually going to pay off. That's how you grow strong. That's how you grow better, right? And so last week, I'm still waiting, for that breakthrough moment. I'm like, someday they're going to grow up and they're going to look back at it when they're 40 and say, Dad, I really appreciate that. It's like, do I have to wait that long, God? When are they going to get it, right? And so last week, this is what happened. I think it was Monday or Tuesday, and Charlotte got up. That's my oldest daughter. And Charlotte says to me, Dad, this is what we should do. You should tell us what our times are on that half-mile run so that we can all beat them. And I'm like, oh, wow, somebody's getting it, right? And so I said, let's do it. They all did it, and they all broke their times. I'm like, this is amazing, right? And then they're like, how many push-ups, how many sit-ups? And so they're getting it. I'm like, this is awesome. In fact, they said this week we started doing planks now. So it's like how long you can do a plank for. If you guys know what that is, you see at least flat forward, almost on your belly, but you hold yourself up on your elbows. I'm like, it's working, right? Consistency. The fact that we did it, sure, it took 2.5 years to get here, but we're getting here. I think I was thinking about this. I'm like, why do we often fail at things? Sometimes we fail. Why do we fail? Or why do we end up giving up or quitting on something, right? And the thing is, I think it's because we stop too soon. Maybe we don't see the finish line, so we kind of give up before we ever get there. We were thinking we want to cross it, but we just kind of give up. And there's many number of reasons why that might happen. Maybe we're distracted. Maybe it's too difficult, or we think it's too difficult. That's one of the things I'm trying to teach them. Keep going physically, even when you think you're going to quit, because you can probably do more than you think, right? And the point is that consistency is what moves the needle in our lives. And you guys probably understand this. It works in every area of our life. Think about it. When you tried to learn something new, it didn't come right away. Maybe I remember taking algebra early, in grade school or whatever, and I think I failed that first class. And then I took it again, though, and then I began to, suddenly there comes this moment. You ever notice when you're learning, and you keep doing something, and suddenly, all of a sudden, it just clicks. And that's when you get all the momentum, and you're like, man, I got it. I got my breakthrough moment. Or maybe it's a new business that you've started, and you're like, okay, this is just too much. It's costing too much. But sometimes if we look at why is this some other business succeed? Because they're consistent, and they persevere even through the most difficult times. So what's the difference between relationships? Excuse me, I got ahead of myself there. But the same is true for your relationship, and especially when it comes to your marriage. Because marriages are not easy. Everyone here knows that. Marriages take work. But I know people who have been married for 50 years or more. Let's see if there's anyone in here. I know there's somebody here. Right there. 50 years. Can we give them a congratulations? 55? Is that what you're flashing? 55 years. Can you believe that? That's longer than most of us have been alive, or many of us have been alive. We're like, I can't believe that they've been married that long to the same person. It's the same person, right? It is the same person. Okay, all right, just checking. Why do some marriages go the distance and some don't? Because I'm pretty sure statistics tell us that some of us here that are sitting here have probably been married more than once. Or we've already been married, but we're not married anymore. It's like, well, why did they go in 55 years and we're only making it so long, right? What's the difference between relationships that last a lifetime and those that don't? What's the secret to a love that lasts? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And so, as you saw the bumper up on the screen, that we're in the series Love Story. In fact, this is the last day that we're going to be in this series. And the series is based on an Old Testament book called the Song of Solomon. And the Song of Solomon was written by Solomon himself. Sometimes it's called the Song of Songs, maybe in your Bible. But King Solomon wrote this book, and he writes it on one of the greatest virtues in our life or in our society, which is love, but specifically love between a man and a woman. And so we've been gleaning principles from this book on how to do great marriages. And the hope is, I think all of us, when we think about marriage, the hope is that when we get married, it's going to last a lifetime. That's what I think. And whether you're religious or not, or whether you believe in God or not, the majority of the people feel this way. And why do you think I believe that? Because surveys tell us that 73% of the people out there believe that there is a soulmate just for them. So if you believe that there's a soulmate just for you, you're going to spend the rest of your life. That's the hope. So the majority of people really want to spend this time, their lifetime with somebody. And so, but statistics also tell us that first-time marriages, 41% end in divorce. So there's a group of people, like, we want to go the distance, but we're not able to make it. And if you add the divorces from their second or third marriages, it comes up to over 50%. But here's something else that you might want to know, and that is this: 20% of people in relationships do not consider their current partner to be their soulmate. So 73 minus 20, 50, right? 50% of those people, they're ending their marriages. And the truth is, today, you might be sitting here and you're like, yeah, it looks perfect on the outside. We show up at church and we got smiles on our faces, but you know what? I don't know how our relationship is really doing. Maybe today you're questioning that. Don't raise your hands. We're not pointing to you. No one has to know, right? And you might be asking this question: John, I heard what you just said about a soulmate, and we wonder, did we marry the right person? The truth is, I bet every single one of us has asked that question, because as beautiful as my wife is, right? And how awesome is, you guys know she's better than me. Everyone's like, where's Carolina every time I show up? You know, it's like, all right, what about me? What about me? You know, listen, I've even thought, did I marry the right person? Depending on what you're going through, depending on the situation in your life. And so I'm willing to bet that you've thought that too. But I believe that we can make marriages work. I believe that we can not just make our marriages work, but that they can be fruitful, and that they can be the thing that we desire, that they can be fulfilling and enjoyable in our lives. And so we're going to glean a little bit more as we finish this book. So let's find out how as we finish up the Song of Solomon. So the first thing is this: the daughters of Jerusalem. If you remember, there's about three characters. There's the beloved, he's the man. There's the Shulamite, she's the woman. And then there's this kind of chorus of people, they're friends, it seems, of the Shulamite, the woman, the daughters of Jerusalem, they're called. So she says, who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? So from a distance, they see somebody coming, and they see this woman just kind of embracing, kind of leaning into her husband as they're walking. They see these two people, like, man, these guys have got it together. And they say, I awakened you under the apple tree. There your mother brought you forth. There she bore you and brought you forth. So they're like, I remember you. This is where you were born. I remember you when you were young. I've seen you go through all these stages. We've watched. Personally, you and I, from a distance, we've read this book. We've watched this couple go from attraction to dating to courtship or engagement to the wedding night, right? To marriage and the wedding night. And then we even saw their first fight. And we're like, we've been watching this couple go through all of this. And so time has kind of passed, has passed along. And if we're looking here at the end of this book, we can kind of assume a little bit that this is into the relationship quite some time. And in the distance, her friends see them coming, and she says, they're saying, who is this? We don't even recognize you. We know you from when you were little. We knew you all the way until you grew up. And there's this moment, because married life, and this relation has transformed you, obviously, for the better. So we see them walking, leaning on each other. We see this consistency and a maturity in their lives. And if you want to follow along in the message, you can pull out your outlines, and we're going to fill in a few blanks just to help the message stick this week. But the first thing is this: real contentment in marriage comes from real commitment. Real contentment in marriage comes from real commitment. You see, God has uses relationships in their lives to mature them, to change them, to transform them. They're saying, you're not like what we saw before, you're something different in a way that only commitment to real marriage can do. It was this relationship is the thing that has transformed them. You know, I read an article the other day, and this was kind of scary just because the title was "The Terrifying Rise of Schoolboys Making AI Girlfriends." Yeah, I don't know if I'll say it again. The terrifying rise, like this is happening everywhere, of schoolboys making AI girlfriends. And so this article comes from the United Kingdom. If you just kind of Google it, you'll find something on this almost anywhere on the internet now, because we all know that AI is like taken over, and we all have our fears about it. But there's this scary trend happening that you can make your own dream relationship. Here's one of the picture from one of the things. The way you chat shapes the way it responds. And look at they're all beautiful, right? They're all the kid's ideal of what they want. And you've got blondes, you've got brunettes, you've got redheads, you've got Asian, you've got black, dark, light, brown. You've got everything that you want, right? And so this is the thing. You can create your own image of what you want. They can have every physical quality that you want them to have. But you can also make them the type of personality that you want. And so you can either download the app, or you can go right onto the website and do this. And this is the thing. This woman, this AI girlfriend, doesn't require anything from you. In fact, you don't even have to buy if you were going to go out to eat, right? You just got your phone. You're like, I got my Big Mac, but I don't have to buy one for her. She laughs at all of your jokes, guys. Think about that. I wish my wife would laugh at some of my jokes. She likes what you like. She's always encouraging. And so these kids are getting into a relationship. But here's the problem. They aren't real. It's fake. It's not even real. There was a psychologist who comments, a psychotherapist comments. She says, children designing the appearance of their romantic partner could cause them to have a very warped idea of what a body or sex looks like. She points out and says that chatbots' agreeableness or lack of challenge is worrying. Their whole engagement model is telling a user what they want to hear. Why would they spend time enduring the reciprocity or the difficulties of a real relationship? But fictitious or fictionless, relationships aren't what life is about. People being thoughtless, selfish, calling out, that's what human relationships are, and how children build resilience. It's like you need a little bit of challenge in your life if you're going to grow and if you're going to be resilient. Hearing everything that you want, getting everything you want doesn't change you. The problem is we kind of like the idea of a made-to-order spouse, don't we? Come on, let's just admit it. These are the things I want. These are all the features. These are the things I don't want. You know, it would be great if we could pick all the features that we do want. You know, the perfect physical features, the perfect emotional things about them, whatever it is. We would love a relationship that doesn't have conflict in our lives. But it would not teach us, as we just read, as the world tells us, it would not teach us how to be resilient. It wouldn't change us. You see, marriage was not meant to conform the world to our desires. Because sometimes we think if we get married that everything is going to work out great and it's going to be the answer to all of our problems. But God uses marriage to change us. God uses it to challenge us. God uses it to transform us. And though through marriage we realize, and I don't know if you realize, but I realized I had a ton of flaws. They get amplified. Suddenly I thought I was great to get along with until I got challenged by my wife. And then I realized I wasn't as easy to get along with as I thought. It's through a marriage that we become a better person. It's through a marriage that we learn to care for somebody. It's through a marriage that we learn to surrender sometimes. It's through a marriage that we learn what real sacrifice is, and God trying to teach us that. In fact, God challenges us to be what he's called us to be. Listen to what the Apostle John writes. He says, "Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth." You see, we can talk all day about what it means to love somebody, right? We can think about it. We can even say it out loud, but it means nothing without the actions in truth. So having the ideal picture of what your marriage should be in your head does nothing tangible in your life. Think about that, right? It doesn't produce anything. It doesn't change anything. But love lived out is something different, and that's where the results begin to happen in your life. You see, real love is not getting everything that you've ever wanted. Sometimes we think that, but it's not. Getting everything you wanted will only make us more selfish, but unappreciated of what we have. And so getting everything you want is not real. But what is real? And that's what we're going to talk about next. So the Shulamite begins to speak. This is the woman. Go ahead. Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm. For love is as strong as death, jealousy as cruel as the grave. Its flames are flames of fire, a most vehement flame. Many waters cannot quench love, nor can the floods drown it. If a man would give for love all the wealth of his house, it would be utterly despised. You can't buy it, is what she's saying. She says, set me a seal. Set me as a seal upon your arm. A seal back then was basically when you put wax or you'd put clay either on a letter, or it might be on a crate or a shipment of something, or even on a door that you didn't want open. If you guys remembered that the tomb of Jesus was sealed, right, with the emperor's seal. And so then usually it was in a signet ring or something, and you would press it into that hot wax, or you'd press it into the clay before it dried. And that was mean that nothing should break it. Nothing should open it. And she's saying to him, this is what our love should be, something that is never broken. And we've read a lot of descriptions of the man and the woman's beauty, but here she talks about the importance of commitment. So they go from, these are all how beautiful you are, how much I like the way you look, how much you entice me, how much I have feelings for you. But she makes this shift and she says, listen, in order for love to last, I need commitment from you. I need to be like a seal upon your arm. And so this next thing to fill out might be important. Lust fades, but the commitment of love lasts. Lust fades, but the commitment of love lasts. You know, many Hollywood stars, it seems, and maybe musicians and people that are kind of famous, and maybe because their name is just so famous that we tend to notice it more than other people, but they seem to go from one relationship to another, don't they? Seems like, you know, we got a new name of somebody all the time that's going out with somebody else. And because the last relationship didn't seem to work out. And usually it's because they're following a feeling. The excitement of a new relationship, right? That's the thing that we all love and remember how exciting that made us feel, how the desire that was inside of us, this attraction to that person. The problem is, though, when the feeling fades, then love seems to too, doesn't it? And that's what happens. That's the way our culture kind of defines love. They say things like this: I fell out of love. And I bet we've all heard that in some context or with a friend or whatever it is. Like it's something that we don't have control over. It just happens to us or it doesn't. There's a magic wand that's waved by somebody somewhere, and if it hits us, then we're in love. And if it doesn't, then we're not. And because it happens so spontaneously, the problem is we also feel like it can spontaneously also just disappear. Right? It's like that's kind of our thought when it comes to love. And see, this mindset will be an endless journey if that's what we believe. Because when it's gone, it's gone. And so then we move on and we look for it again someplace else. And then when that fades, we go on and look for it somewhere else because we keep searching and seeking out that emotional high that love or lust can bring. You see, we have to understand that emotion comes and goes, but commitment stays. Right? Those love goes, but or that feeling does, that emotion does, but commitment stays. Like I said, we've heard things like, I just fell out of love, or I don't love them anymore, or I just don't feel it. I don't feel it for them. And I've experienced that in relationships in the past. And if you do life on your feelings, it's always going to be a roller coaster ride. Jeremiah says this: the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can understand it? He's saying that our hearts, yours and mine, tell us certain things all the time, and that we can't always just listen to our hearts. Doesn't mean that that isn't important. It just means that we can't listen to it only. We have to listen to other things. The human heart is constantly changing. You know, during premarital counseling, you guys know James and Kelly Erb, don't you? Or actually, Upty Grove now, because that's their last name. They got married on Friday. Yeah. And I was there doing the wedding. Yeah. And one of the things that happens is I always do premarital counseling with whoever I'm going to do the wedding for, because I'm not just going to provide a service where they're legally married. I want to also give them the right start to their marriage. And one of the things I say to everyone where I do premarital counseling is this. I ask them a question. Can you define love for me? Think about that for a moment. How would you define love? You see, a lot of times it's a difficult thing to do. Some people are able to kind of say a few things. Someone else might say something else. But here's why it's hard. We use the word love for so many different things. I tell my wife that I love her. But I also tell her sometimes I love that cheeseburger, right? Is that the same love that I have for my wife? No, it's a little bit different, right? Or like some of us might say, I love Disney. Is that the same love that you have for your wife? No, but it's the same word that we use. When we define love, a lot of times we define it as a feeling, don't we? Right? We say it's a feeling because it made me feel that way. When I met them, it made me feel that way. Therefore, I knew or I thought that I was in love with them. But the problem is when we define love as a feeling, we miss out on what true biblical love is. The feeling that you feel that we call love most of the time is really a word we call lust. Now, lust has gotten a very bad name for itself, okay? Because when we say lust, and I say that word, most of the time we think, oh, that means they're bad, right? They lust after something. Lust really simply means a desire or a longing for something. Then that can be anything. A physical lust for something could be, yeah, I do long for that cheeseburger. I'd love to eat it, you know? Or it could be, I do want to go to Disney. I'm longing to go and do that and have that experience. So lust isn't always bad per se. It's a natural part of the way God created us. In fact, you probably wouldn't eat any food if you didn't have some of that lust inside of you because it's desire to fulfill it. But the problem is, once you've eaten the cheeseburger or two, right? Do you want another one? Not for a little bit. You're like, no, I filled that desire. And so that's why if we only go by our feelings or define love in that way, we'll find ourselves always falling short. Biblical love is defined differently. You see, God defines it this way. You guys probably already know it. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 says this, love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked. It thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, it hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. Suddenly, we're not talking about a feeling. You see, love is not a noun, according to the Bible, according to God. Love is actually a verb. It's the action of what we do because we choose to care for somebody. That's what happens. So it means that you and I can choose love and choose who we love. It's not just some magic wand, right, that makes us love somebody. The difference in great marriages is this. Both partners choose to love each other through their actions and in all circumstances because they make the choice to do it. You see, when you don't judge your marriage by how you feel each day, okay, because you woke up and you're like, I don't know if I'm into it today, right? If you don't do that, it's going to create consistency in your life. If you wake up and say, I'm going to choose to love my spouse, then it's going to build upon itself every single day. In fact, through consistency, it builds the feelings. Go back to the opening illustration, right? Because I spent 2.5 years with my kids running, suddenly Charlotte's like, hey, I feel like doing this competitively today. I feel like challenging myself. Because if you do with consistency, the feelings will come. In fact, your spouse, if you're consistent with them, will feel loved, and then what will happen to them? They'll show you love back in return. The Bible says this is real love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his son as a sacrifice to take away our sins. Jesus says, I'm not going to wait for you to love me. It's not because you were so awesome that I wanted you. It wasn't any of those things, though he loves us unconditionally. He just said, I'm going to love you, and I'm going to show you such great love that we can't help but respond. Anyone who's ever responded to the offer of Christ on salvation, just like, God, you've done so much for me, I have to respond. It's the same thing that happens in our marriage when we choose to love. instead of just go by our feelings. Here's the thing. You and I get to decide whether we are going to love or not. We get to decide if we're going to pursue lasting love. It's in our hands. Think about it. Every morning we wake up, we get the opportunity to pursue lasting love by how we treat and how we love our spouse. And my advice to you is make that choice to love every single day. So let's finish the book here. The Shulamite continues to speak. The woman, or actually it's her brothers, some new characters, says, we have a little sister and she has no breasts. So what she's simply saying is that she's not of age yet, right? And they're actually reflecting back because it appears like they are the ones who raised her. And actually, they are the ones who put her in the field, if you read in the beginning, and those are the ones who put her to work. And so they're kind of watching over her, so they're kind of reflecting back on her. And she's saying, we knew you and raised you as a kid. What shall we do for our sister in the day when she is spoken for? How do we prepare her for her marriage is what they're saying, because the day is going to come. If she is a wall, we will build upon her a battlement of silver. If she is a door, we will enclose her with boards of cedar. The Shulamite says, I am a wall, and my breasts like towers. Then I became in his eyes as one who found peace. Solomon had a vineyard at Baal Hamon. He leased the vineyard to keepers. Everyone was to bring for its fruit 1,000 silver coins. Really, in the beginning, they were working in this vineyard, so apparently Solomon released it to the brothers. And when she went to go work in the field, that's when she met Solomon. And so now my own vineyard is before me. You, O Solomon, may have 1,000, and those who tend its fruit 200. So she's like, hey, I owe you, Solomon, for this, but also I owe my brothers for the way they raised me. You who dwell in the gardens, the companions listened for your voice. The beloved responds to her, let me hear it. So he's now longing for her, and she says, make haste, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on the mountains of spices. So what was going on there? I skipped a couple of verses because I want to kind of unfold them for you. If the brothers have raised her, right? He says, if you're like a wall, then we're going to encourage you. What does he mean? What do they mean by that? So like, if you protect your virginity, then we're going to praise that. We're going to encourage that. Because back in that day, those were arranged marriages. And they arranged those marriages when they were kids. So imagine you arrange the marriage, and the kid grows up, right? And you're like, wait a minute, you've already given yourself away? We paid for this. It's kind of like, we were buying this for our children, my son. And so think about that that moment. So the brothers are like, how are we going to prepare for her wedding day? Well, if she's like a wall and she's wise the way she lives her life and she's guarded, then we're going to praise her and we're going to lift her up. Look at our daughter. Look at our sister, right? And they're going to encourage that. But he says, if she's like an open door, she lets people in and out, right? He's like, if she's open a door, then what we're going to do is we're going to build a wall and close her off. We're going to go, wait. You're flirting with a few too many guys right now. Don't you realize that you're already engaged to somebody else? They're like, we're going to kind of like help you out. We're going to guard you. We're going to protect you so that you will be ready for your marriage. And I love what the Shulamite responded. She goes, I'm like a wall. I'm like a wall. That's what she said. There was two choices. I decided to wait. I decided to save myself and dedicate myself to my husband. She saved herself for her beloved. And then she says, the Shulamite proved herself to be trustworthy. And so the last thing to fill out here is this. Consistent trust is the foundation of all great marriages. Consistent trust is the foundation of all great marriages. You see, this couple started their marriage with a foundation of trust. In fact, Proverbs, speaking of the woman, says this, who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is as far above rubies. The heart of her husband safely trusts her because she is virtuous, so he will have no lack of grain. You see, trust brings security that nothing else can bring. Because she waited for her husband, he trusted her, and it brought him peace. You see, when you establish relationships, trust in your relationship, it brings peace to the other spouse, doesn't it? I trust my wife. She says, hey, I'm going out. I'm not worried about what's going on. I'm not concerned about that because there's a peace in my heart. That's something nothing in this world can buy. And that's why peace is such a big foundation for you and me. And I want to encourage you, no matter who you are today, because you might be sitting here and going, yeah, I trust my spouse. But there are other people here that are not quite sure. And I want to encourage you to fight for that trust. And that may mean bringing up some things that are uncomfortable, because we can break trust in many different ways. I always say this to people when they're married, or they're getting married. I say, you have trust for free. Unless you've broken it in some way, when you stand up and you say, I do, you've got it for free. But the problem is we can begin to break down trust in a relationship by the actions and the things that we do. If you tell somebody, hey, I'm not going to go spend money over here, and then you go come back with a new car, and they're like, hey, we didn't agree to buy that, right? You're breaking down trust in the area of finances. If you do things where you don't show up consistently, you'll begin to break down trust in those areas. And the biggest area that we can break trust is when it comes to physical intimacy and taking it outside of the marriage. Listen, I want to encourage you to fight for trust, and here's why. I actually skipped over a verse back in chapter 6 that I didn't read to you guys. And this, I put up on the screen here for you. Song of Solomon, the beloved, is saying this. There are 60 queens and 80 concubines, and virgins without number. My dove, my perfect one, is the only one of her mother, the favorite of the one who bore her. The daughters saw her and called her blessed, the queens and the concubines, and they praised her. I don't know if you know this. I don't know what point Solomon's writing this. I don't know whether he's referring to this, who he's referring to, but some of us may be aware that Solomon had 300 wives and 700 concubines. Think about that. Dude, that blows my mind. I don't even want to think about that. Yeah, I can barely handle one. In this verse, what he's trying to extol to her or say to her, he's like, all these, I got these, but you're above them all. And I guess that's a compliment. I suppose, he's complimenting her. But it kind of seems out of place, doesn't it? It's like, isn't this about a relationship between a man and a woman? Like the two of them? And maybe this is the one he loved above all. Because back in the day when he got married, the first person he marries is the Pharaoh's daughter. And it was political. It was purely political. And he married a lot of different people because his kingdom was the most prosperous and the largest when it came to the reign of Israel. And so he made all these marital relationships with people and through their daughters. And so maybe that's part of it. But I want you to know this, because sometimes you go, should this happen? The Bible actually tells us that kings should have not multiplied horses, meaning gathered big armies, but they were trusting God, but they were also not to multiply wives. Because here's what the problem with that was eventually, because of all of their influence in his life, he came to turn away from God. You see, they took his attention away. And if we add anything to our relationship with our spouse that doesn't belong there, then what's going to happen is it's going to slowly turn our trust and our eyes away from that person. When you get married, you're expecting your spouse is the most important thing in your life. I was expecting my wife to think I'm the most important, and she's expecting the same thing. But you know what happens when we found, especially right now as our kids are hitting the teenage years, there is a lot of stuff going on in our life. There are days that a week goes by, and then we just suddenly say, did we even spend any time together? Because there's soccer practice, and there's recitals, and there's graduations, and there's tutoring, and there's taking them to school, and there's going to this event, and that party on this weekend. And there's so many things, but there's so many things that can get in the way of our lives. It could be jobs, or kids, or schedules, or our egos, or our sins, right? Or our desires, or distractions. All of these things come and fight the relationship that we have and fight our unity. And we must be careful what we let into our marriages that can erode trust. So this week, in about less than 2 hours, we're getting in a van and going to North Carolina. We're spending 9 days. Next week I won't be here. We have a very special guest who's going to be here. He's the dean or the CEO or the leader of the Calvary Chapel Bible College. They moved it from California, if you're familiar. Anybody see Jesus Revolution here? Anybody? Only a few. Okay, well, watch that movie. It's about Greg Laurie, but the guy who hands him the keys to the church is Chuck Smith, who kind of started this Calvary movement. Anyway, he's going to be here next week, so when I'm not here, just welcome him as he preaches the message. But we went yesterday. We're going to do a road trip. We're going to North Carolina. Then we're going to my cousins. Then my mom in Greensboro. Then we're going to Williamsburg, Virginia to see my brother. Then we're going all the way to Pennsylvania to see my sister. And then we leave the van and we fly back, right, from Allentown, Pennsylvania. We rented the car yesterday right after the picnic. My wife drives it home. She's like, I'm going to take it home. And I'm pulling into my neighborhood, and there's a gas station right there, and I see this black van, looks nice and new, and I'm like, hey, that must be our van, our van. And I drive by, but as I'm driving by, I see there's a flat tire. And I'm like, that can't be it. We just rented that. Oh, those poor suckers, and I drive on. I kind of almost said that. That's not good, right, for a pastor. And I just felt bad. It was kind of like I felt bad, but I'm like, so I drove in, parked my car in our driveway, and then I look at my text, and I see that my wife texted me, I got a flat tire. I'm like, where are you? She's like, I'm at the gas station. It was us. It was us. The good news is, emergency came, and it got so popped on the side, you couldn't even repair it. So we had to. Thankfully, they put on the spare. We brought it. They changed it out. They'll reimburse us, etc. So we're good. We're good. We're ready to go. But here's the deal. Once in a while in life, in our marriages, we all get a flat tire. Happens to all of us. It's not what we expected. We didn't believe that was going to happen. This shouldn't be the way it's turning out. I shouldn't have said that the way I said it. You did this, and I've told you. It bothers me, right? We get flat tires. It happens. It's going to happen in every marriage. There's not a marriage that is exempt from it. We have to fight for consistency in loving them and in trusting them. We have to. If you want a great marriage that goes the distance, that's the way they're built. They're not built because you wish it to be. They're not built because if you feel like it hard enough, it's going to happen. It's because you determine, I'm going to be committed. You determine you're going to love them. You determine I'm going to be consistent when it comes to trust. This part of marriage can sometimes be bittersweet. For some of us, we're thinking about a past marriage right now, and I couldn't make it work, or we're thinking about feeling guilty maybe, or frustrated. Why has my marriage not been what I thought it was going to be? And I just would say, number one, don't worry about the past. You can't change it anyway. Ask for forgiveness and move on, but here's what I'd like you to do. Take what you're learning today and apply it to your future. Because if you're willing to do that, God doesn't just automatically say it's perfect. He partners with you and me. And if we're willing to do it God's way, if we're willing to press in, then you're going to have the marriage that you truly desire. The first wedding I ever did, remember my senior pastor's like, John, they're doing a wedding. Can you do this wedding? First one. And it was on the beach on Miami Beach, right? And I got dressed up in my suit, and I went down there. There we are on the sand. I walked out on the sand. They have the arch that's there, and they had, there was people in bathing suits and bikinis like, marry us. It was really beautiful, though. They had the arch, and it was about evening, and so the sun's going down. I mean, it was just beautiful. It was gorgeous. And so I got there. They had some chairs out there, and it wasn't actually a wedding ceremony. It was a vow renewal. And there were their friends and their family. It was probably about 10 people there. And it was just this amazing, beautiful moment of two people who said, I am going to love you. I'm going to trust you no matter what. We're in it all the way to the end. And I just want that for you guys. I want that for me. And I believe that God will do it if we're willing to trust Him, we're willing to love that other person no matter what. I think for some of us right now, I just want to end with a prayer. That it's going to be the commitment that you make that's going to make the decision and make the difference in your relationship. Jesus said this is how we know, or John's writing, says this is how we know what love is. Jesus laid down His life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. That means we lay down our lives for our husband. We lay down our lives for our wives. You see, the commitment that Jesus made, you can't lay down your life twice. It's all in, right? It's all in.